Hey, it's Aaron, the Metal Theologian. So I've kind of been listening to a lot of reggae, but I also have some new British heavy metal 45s I've kind of been listening to that I want to talk about. So I think I'm going to talk about the metal 45s and maybe intersperse some reggae, but I don't know. We'll see, man. It's all fucking freeform around here, right? This is one I managed to turn up a copy of. I'm actually fucking stoked about this. It's kind of a rare one, so I'll just be honest right now. There's a reissue of it kicking around like a bootleg one from Brazil. It's okay, but this is the fucking War of the Ring by Ark. And this is like, it's 81 actually. I was gonna say it's a little bit on the late side, but no, it's not true. Now here's the deal. I'm looking forward to putting this on because, okay, so War of the Ring, right? Of course that's gonna be like sort of an early like epic song, right? Like, it's not like even as epic as like, you know, the Tyrant Hold Back the Lightning, let alone like a Man of War or something like that. But for 81, it's definitely, it's the intent is there, you know? This is actually the B-side though. This is called Ice Cream Theme. And you get this record, you think Ice Cream Theme, that's gonna suck. That's gonna be some fucking joke song or something, you know? Because especially on British shit, frankly, they're kind of prone to that, you know? But this is it. If this is the ice cream theme, dude, I can hang with the fucking ice cream theme, you know? Found this the Asian market. I think Burst is an excellent name for a fucking banana flavor soda. And you know what's extra dank is that it's this artificial banana flavor, real big like that. It's like they're marketing it specifically for me, you know? Since I specifically want that artificial shit. So we're gonna give this shit a try. Where's this from, actually? I just assumed it was Mexican, but... Oh, product of Honduras. Here's to Honduras, man. If you're watching from Tegucigalpa, cheers. Ooh, it really has. It's a really weird mouthfeel somehow. I think it's a little less carbonated than I expected. It's almost like flat, you know? It's very sweet, but there's a smoothness that I wasn't expecting. I wouldn't say it's like a smooth, like a creamy sort of thing, like those nitro drinks either. Like, if you go out and pull this out, you'd be like, oh, Metal Theologian said this was smooth, and it's a fucking soda. I'm like, no, I mean, compared to like where sort of my head was, like, compared to like a Perrier or something like that, this is a smooth fizz, you know? Yeah, so this thing kind of sucks. I don't think I really like it. I'm gonna keep drinking it and seeing. I love all the arrows pointing into the banana. I don't know what the fuck that's supposed to mean. Like, this is like nature and this is like man's improvements. Maybe it's some sort of idea like that, you know? It's a fucking great record. Yeah, so the next one I'm gonna hype here. I think I've talked about this band briefly, but this record was sort of one of those that was like sort of one of these mysterious like new wave British heavy metal 45s back, you know, 20 years ago when I started collecting this shit. And I actually ended up getting this one from Phil from Rare Ass Records and Monster Records, you know. And I went and hung out with him in San Antonio and checked this thing out, and it kind of blew me away. It's by a band called Kraken. It says Knave real big, so you'd be forgiven for thinking that, but that was their, like, I mean, this is obviously a private press, right? I guess that was their little label. Anyway, this record plays at 33, and it really kind of sounds like shit because they just put way too much music on this fucking thing. But, like, the impulses in this thing are really progressive. Like, these guys want to go, like, full, like, prog rock, but still, like, you know, emphasizing the rock aspect, you know what I mean? And not only that, but these guys almost have a little bit of a doomy sound, and I don't know how much that is a function of the fact that, like, it just sounds kind of muffled and kind of buried, like, under a layer of mud or something because of the production being so bad. But, it has a really weird sound, you know, I almost want to call it, like, a proto-doom record or something like that. I mean, the biggest problem with calling it that is I don't think anyone ever heard this fucking thing, you know, until dealers 20 years ago started putting it on lists to sell to suckers like me. So I'm gonna put on I'm actually put on the second song on side A. See, there you go, man. 2 fucking prog songs. I'll give you an idea too. I'll start this off at the volume level where the last one was playing. I just let it, and then I'll show you where I have to play this one. Okay. That's where it was. I have to do one of these. That's a nice drive to it, you know? Like there's some real rock there, but these guys do all this weird shit with like time signatures and that then too, you know? Like lots of time changes this for a metal band. But this is still pretty unashamedly metal, you know? I appreciate that in my metal bands because goddamn it, metal's fucking fantastic, man. Alright, cool. Yeah, I got another one to talk about, but I'll save it for a little bit. I'm going to show a couple Lee Perry records real quick, I think, here. Let this go and, like, hype y'all on Kraken a little bit. So here's what I've never owned before. This is actually not necessarily a Lee Perry record per se, but this is kind of a classic reggae comp. I mean, the song Tighten Up could almost be like the theme song for, like, 60s, like early reggae, like really late rock steady sounds, you know what I mean? And about half of this record, well maybe a third of this record consists of Lee Perry productions. It's interesting because it has like Lee Perry and then like Duke Reed, who is obviously one of the other major guys in Jamaica at the time. Then it has Byron Lee with his calypso shit. Anyway, you know, this is it's definitely kind of dated sounding, you know, kind of 60s thing, and it kind of feels a little bit like, you know, one of those souvenir records that like cruise lines would sell and shit like that, like in the Caribbean. But it's a really cool record, man. It's just really fun. And if you're so put off by a cover of like Spanish Harlem or you know, Kansas City, then maybe you're not gonna dig this or Place in the Sun. I'll be honest, I skipped over Obla Di Obla, the Joyce Bond version of that on the air. I was like, I really don't need to hear a fucking Beatles cover. I'm sorry, I gotta draw the line somewhere. But still, man, no regrets. It's a cool comp, you know? And, there's a little bit more of an authentic comp maybe now. Let's see. Looking for one of these other ones here. A couple I got relatively recently. Oh, here's one. This is like the public service announcement, okay? This is the big one that turned up recently. I've been keeping an eye out for this fucker for like years, no shit. And like this has been a $300 record for 20 years. Someone finally fucking reissued it. Apparently it was in 2020 and I just didn't see it. But there's still, I mean, I found a seller in the US. It was actually really cool too. And I finally got my hands on a fucking copy of Clint Eastwood by the Upsetters. And I still need a copy of The Many Moods of the Upsetters. It's like the other one that's like an Upsetters. I hate to say it, but sort of a holy grail to me. But this was even bigger than that because the Many Moods of the Upsetters is expensive, but it's not like untouchable. This one's like, you know, how good does a record have to be to justify spending $300 on it? You know what I'm saying? I feel like this record is kind of tough to find. Very cool. Not really as good as this one. This is actually an interesting story. If you're not familiar with, I'm sure people have heard of Lee Scratch Perry, right? And the Upsetters, who are basically his house band. Yeah, apparently he like made a deal with Trojan Records to put together this name, or put together what became this record, The Good, the Bad, and the Upsetters. Now this isn't necessarily as like heavy and sort of dark as like some as like Lee Perry stuff, but sort of weirdly goofy at the same time, by the way. But it's a really cool record, man. I like it a lot. But apparently Lee Perry hated it so much, so he didn't just have his own fucking he didn't just have his name and everything taken off it, but he actually like recorded a whole new album and called it The Good, the Bad, and the Upsetters. And I've actually seen pictures. Supposedly there's some like he actually had covers for some of the Trojan ones, and he just like stuck his own track list over it on a sticker. So this is how I know this one, and this is definitely the better record of the two. It's the more sort of eccentric and weird. You hear what these guys are doing, by the way? All this weird shit's like rolling around and going all these different places. This is much simpler, but maybe even weirder, sort of as far as, you know, the nature of the brain that it came from, you know? Anyway, awesome record. I actually think both these are pretty essential, but the Jamaican one is definitely the better of the two, because what can I say, you know? You gotta leave Lee Perry to his own fucking devices. Actually, maybe. I don't even know if that's fucking true, you know? Because on the other hand, sometimes people who are a little bit nuts, even if they're really gifted, can just kind of like lose their way into shit. They like need someone to rein them in. I actually have a story about that. This picture right here. Actually, I'm going to the next record, and I'll talk about the picture. Bottom line is I have a picture hanging right there, and I actually got it from a guy I met in San Francisco when I was living there. He was a guy who had actually was in the U.S. from Britain, and I was just sort of making money to get by a little bit on the side by selling his own paintings on the street in the financial district. And I really liked him and sort of became friends with him and bought like one or two, but he gave me a couple more. This one in particular here, he wanted to give me one as a wedding present, okay? So I went over to his house and I was going to look at him. And this one right here, he had actually been working on. That one right there, that blue one. And he said that, and he was like, oh, yeah, you can have that one. Pick another one. He was all kind of like, yeah, that's kind of a shitty one. Pick a good one, too, you know? Just putting this thing back on the stand. And then later on, he was over at my place, and he saw it on the wall, and he said, you know, I'm glad you took that picture away from me. Because if you hadn't, I would have kept messing with it. But now that I'm seeing it again, and it's, like, framed and on your wall and shit, I actually kind of like it, you know? Now, I think this record is interesting. Anyway, so Lee Perry could have been like that guy, like that friend of mine. His name was Martin Johnston, by the way. Okay, so this record, people talk a lot about like sort of the punk influence on the, you know, on metal generally, and with thrash it's kind of obvious with the speed and shit like that. But people talk about that with the DIY aesthetic and that in the new wave of British heavy metal era. This one, I think you really hear it in its songwriting. Okay? Listen to this chorus. Doesn't sound like it could be a Buzzcocks chorus or something like that. And they're kind of playing it like a metal song, you know what I mean, from a writing standpoint. Like the verse, you could use that in a punk or metal song pretty much equally. But that chorus, that's a little bit, I think, on the punk side, you know. And specifically that, like, I don't know, I'm thinking of like Manchester. That's something of the Buzzcocks. I think that's what it really reminds me of more than anything. Anyway, cool rocker. By another band that isn't exactly, you know, a chart buster. This is the Mighty Omen Searcher. You know, fantastic photo up on the back there. The guy's name is actually Alistair, the singer. That seems like one of those things that like Americans think British people name their kids, but they don't actually do it. Because they really just name their kids shit like Martin that still seems foreign to us, but isn't quite as weird as something like Alistair. But there he fucking is. What do you get? You know, something I've been kind of fascinated with lately is, you know, they've done studies on, like, memory and that sort of thing, you know? It's like we hear that, like, one of the things that I've always sort of heard most of my life is that in, oral cultures, that people, like, memorization is, like, really highly prized, you know what I mean? And that's why, you know, whether it's, like, the Iliad and the Odyssey, or, like, you know, the early, you know, what became the Bible eventually, or, you know, what became the Quran eventually, that, like, these cultures, we know that this shit's like really well preserved because even though it wasn't written down until hundreds of years after the fact, or however long after the fact it was, whatever the case is, you know, in the oral cultures that was really highly prized. Well, they've done studies on this shit, like anthropologists have and shit, and apparently it's not true at all. Like in these kinds of cultures and shit, they're just bad. Just when they retell stories, you know what I mean? And what that kind of highlights is that, like, you know, and like eyewitness testimony, like in a courtroom situation, is like notoriously unreliable. People have no fucking idea what they saw after the fact. You know what I mean? And you can even do like little studies on YouTube and shit like that, where it'll be like count how many times this guy like shoots a basket or something like that, and like a gorilla walks by, and you don't notice it because you're like focused on the other thing. Like it shows you again afterwards, and you realize you just fucking missed it. The point is, like, we reconstruct, we don't really remember shit very well as people is sort of the point. You know what I mean? It's like we have a tendency to like remember how a situation made us feel and then like reconstruct a memory around that. You know? And when you multiply that by not only all of humanity, but like all of history that's ever been recorded and shit like that, it's like if you really think about it, you almost get to a point where like you wonder what percentage of what you know is actually bullshit. You know what I mean? Like probably like more than 90% of what we think we know isn't necessarily false. You know what I mean? It's just that it's sort of conjecture, it's sort of reconstructed from like a lot of fragments, just sort of based on how our brains work and shit like that. And like just our whole like sort of idea about our relationship with the world and that is just sort of colored by all these factors that are most decidedly not, you know, logic or like empirical observation or anything like that. You know what I mean? This is Nighttime Flyer. This is another fucking great one. Covers that will chewed up, but look at that. They didn't put their fucking name on the cover. That's how fucking modest they were. Here's the back of it with their logo, like this sort of Roger Dean ripoff. For all I know, maybe they actually got him to do it. I kind of doubt it, though. It's funny, on this thing, though, it says, due to the length of the tracks on this recording, the cutting levels had to be reduced below average values. To obtain maximum separation, spelled wrong, of individual instruments, it is therefore recommended that this recording be played at high volume levels. Now, you know, it's not a stupid play it loud mother thing. But this record actually sounds great. I don't know if you can tell, like, through the thing. But for, like, a new wave of British heavy metal 45, the sound quality on this thing is actually kind of stellar. You know, it has a little bit of a garagey quality, but the instruments are well defined. The separation sounds good as far as I'm concerned. So, yeah, it's kind of funny that they have a little note on their record apologizing for the sound quality, right? So anyway, I think it's funny. I mean, in the name, like, metal theologian, right? Like, I mean, I'm interested in, like, theology and philosophy, that sort of thing, you know? And I've taken, you know, like Wittgenstein pretty seriously, you know what I mean? Like the whole idea of like what we perceive or like the limitations of our language and how like our language means different things in different circumstances, you know what I mean? And when we sort of use like phrases and shit like as signs in different ways. And, you know, you can ask a question, like if you ask a question like, you know, do you believe in God? That question could be yes or no depending on the backdrop or the context, you know what I mean? Or maybe, or... You know what I mean? It's like questions like that don't necessarily have a single answer, you know what I mean? Because the information or the meanings that we're looking for in those things aren't necessarily unique, if that makes sense. So it just seems to me you couple like the fact that like our memories, our perception, all that stuff are just so like distorted anyway, just because of the limitations of our like not just our sensory apparatus, but like our ability, our like of our cognition. You know what I mean? Limitations of our actual cognition. So like when people talk about like absolute truth or like absolute morality, it just becomes funny. It's like, what the hell are you talking about? You know what I mean? And this may all sound like it's just like fucking, you know, a bunch of bullshit I'm making up, but I actually find that it makes it a little bit easier to like have a positive relationship with the world, because like when you hear like these things being agonized over like these serious existential questions, you just feel like there's like literally nothing there. It's like there's at least that's the way I'm inclined to look at it, you know what I mean? It's like the abstraction, you know what I mean? Like perfection or goodness or whatever the abstraction is like a mental tool that we have invented in order to express our emotional relationship to things of our environment and then abstract from that into a concept, you know what I mean? It's like all these layers removed from like our actual experience, and consequently I think it's just like meaningless, you know? It doesn't mean it can't be fun to like sort of play the games and discuss this shit, but it's like, you know? I think that's part of why I like to champion bullshit, you know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, the meaningful shit sometimes says less than the meaningless shit, you know what I mean? What's Nighttime Flyer? It's some nobody band, right? But this statement isn't just not only is this statement just as valid as anyone else's as far as I'm concerned, but I would rather hear what these guys had to say, you know what I mean, based on their own lived experience, probably working class. Maybe one of the band members had some money, you know what I mean? But that sort of thing, and what they were sort of able to scrabble together in their, you know, few years of life and probably a couple months of existence as a band. This is shit that's really interesting to me, you know what I mean? And people talk about how music tells stories, and you know, and not just directly too, but it's sort of like it's it comes up in ways like with you know, like the adage about how you have you know, your whole life to write your first album, but you only have a year to write your second album or whatever it is. Oh, now I have to find another record here. Let's check out this one. Your Mean Machine by Buffalo. This is on the heavy metal label. It's funny that this is like the less obscure one out of what I'm showing tonight, but that's just how it goes. So where was I going with that? I don't know, I guess I think we just find meaning where we look for it. Or we find meaning where we look for it when we're intending to find it. So you know, we're just biased. If a record sucks, like, oh, I have to just like it because of that. But I don't know, I can talk myself in this circle anyway. Cool rocker, isn't it? I feel like I'm turning to stunty here, like I put in a record and then I sort of like talk about some shit for a while. We go back to the record, and we talk about something serious here. I'm not really very big on being serious though. Alright, let's see what else I have. I'll show one more, maybe two more Lee Perry records. Actually, I'm going to show this one just because I really like it a lot, and I play this a lot too. There are like 4 volumes of Prince Farai, Cry Tough Dub Encounter. I think this one's my favorite. I actually wrote a little bit of a reggae kick, and I blame Eric Bauer for it. I've listened to a lot of Lee Perry specifically, but I was kind of looking to pull out some of the classics, you know what I mean? Some of the ones that I might have overlooked in the recent past because I played them a lot in the more distant past, you know what I mean? That was kind of one of those. This is another one, actually. This record is just as great as when I first fucking discovered it, you know. Blackboard Jungle Dub by the Upsetters. You know, it's funny, this one has a poster in it. I don't know where this came from. It's just sitting in the back. There's a huge ad. Look at this thing. Like this huge poster, too. It's kind of beautiful, you know? But just folded up, it's stuck in this record. I don't know where it came from. Someone gave it to me somewhere along the way, I'm pretty sure. But if you're watching and you gave it to me, I apologize for forgetting that it was you. Please leave me a comment and I'll remember next time, maybe. Alright, so there you go. And just in case you're waiting for it, earlier today I played this and this. And that's all the Blue Oyster Cult talk for today. I promise. Alright. There we go. It's a cool rockin' record, isn't it? It's not the same Buffalo as the Australian band, by the way. This is a UK band that was, I don't know, realistically, I don't know where Heavy Metal Records was based, but these guys are probably friends with the label owner. That's pretty much how you get on a label, I think, in a small movement like that. I'm not going to finish this. This one gets a thumbs down from me. This is actually so shitty that like I'm not gonna drink it. So that almost never happens. There's only the second time I can remember this happening in one of my videos. The last time was a shooting cookie soda that I did about at least 3 years ago now. I think it was more like 4 years ago, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. All right, thanks for watching. I hope I haven't decimated your pocketbook. Always appreciate the support. Till next time.